What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I finally got my hands on the white ROG Xbox Ally device, the Z2A, of course, the little brother of the AI Z2 Extreme black Xbox Ally X device. And I've been excited to finally get my hands on this and be able to directly compare it to that device and others and talk a little bit about its price to performance. This is the more budget model, and I got it on sale in stock at Best Buy for $4.99. So let's get into it and take a closer look. We'll start off with the unboxing, and it won't take too long here, but I want to go through what you get here. And unlike my Xbox Ally X version, this one came in a sleeve that it had to be removed from here. So don't know what the difference is there, but my black version didn't come with that. But yes, this is the white version, the Z2A with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. It doesn't have near the storage, RAM, or power that the black version has, but it is something I've been wanting to check out. Now, inside the box, we do, of course, have the stand just like we did for the other one, just kind of a little cardboard or foam white stand, which we'll utilize later in the video. And then we've got our little bit of opening paperwork here where it tells you to plug it in, to power it on, and all that, which we'll get to. So we'll move that out of the way. And then we've got our actual Xbox Ally device here, and we'll move that. And underneath of there, we've got what you would expect, a 65-watt charger from asus, which we pretty much get with all their handhelds, and some paperwork here for warranty and getting started and different things like that in here. So we'll get all that back in there. We'll get this stuff moved to the side, and we'll get over to the Xbox Ally device. We'll get the plastic off of this thing, and we'll get ready to fire it up. But yeah, very much like the Xbox Ally X, this is very comfortable. It can be an odd looking device, but in white, I actually think this is really sleek. And a lot of people hate white tech, but I'm kind of a sucker for white tech. I really like it if it's done right, and I think it looks really nice here. We, of course, do have the smaller 7-inch IPS screen on here that we had on the other Ally devices, and on the Xbox Ally X is 120 hertz with BRR, and it very much looks like the old Allies or the Xbox Ally X Black version, but of course in white. Same venting, same grips and etching and everything, same two back buttons, same thickness on the bottom here, as it does have that kind of tapered design to it and a little bit of an angle to it when you hold it. But yeah, still very comfortable and very nice to hold and light, just like the Xbox Ally X. So we'll get this turned on for the first time, and yes, this is still, just like I said before, a typical Windows install or boot up and setup, which does take a good bit of time, especially since there have been a lot of updates for this device. So pretty much like I said in the Xbox Ally X device and other Windows setup handhelds, I wish that they had a little bit more streamlined setup for this when it came to the Xbox full screen experience, because going through everything still took me about 2.5 hours to get fully updated and where I needed to be into the system. So I always go to desktop mode first, and I get through all of the updates. So Windows updates, because there's a lot of important ones in there for these devices from Microsoft. We've got Armory Crate updates that need to be done, including our new BIOS, among other things. So I have to get into that. We have my asus updates that can pop up. I always like to check over here. Sometimes updates that don't show up elsewhere will show up in here, so I had to do a little bit there as well. And then again, of course, over in Windows Update, there was a couple of things to go through there, and I had to refresh and do a lot of updates that are important for these devices from Microsoft as well. So a lot of places to go through, including Microsoft Store, which I had dozens and dozens of updates to get done. And you want to go through and get all of this stuff done so it's not slowing you down and everything's updated. Then you can remove whatever you want to remove and all of that. Now, of course, after all those updates, I still had to go in and do the actual BIOS update, which is another important one here from asus, and I did that through Armory Crate this time. A lot of times I just do it through my asus, but either way, it's the same thing. Have the device plugged in and go through all the steps to get that done. But again, to go through everything just like normal for setup, plus the BIOS update and all of that, I was a good 2.5 hours or so till I got to this point where we were booted into the Xbox full screen experience, ready to install games and get started and going from there. So that's not anything different. That's pretty typical when it comes to setting up Windows PC handhelds. It's just kind of across the board. Maybe eventually with the Xbox full screen experience, they'll come up with a faster, sleeker way to get you in and get updated and that type of thing. But again, there's been a lot of updates for these devices, so depending on when they were manufactured, you can have a lot of updates to do here. But yeah, I do still really like the Xbox full screen experience and the direction it's headed. And once you're all set up and ready to go, it's really easy to navigate and use, just like I talked about in the past video, and get through all of your widgets and that type of thing. I still utilize the One Game Launcher a lot to add programs that aren't picked up by the Xbox full screen experience, so kind of bridges the gap there. But I'm getting pretty good with this, getting pretty slick, and I do really like what Microsoft is doing here and where they're headed with this to kind of make it easier to use Windows on the handhelds. But the whole setup and getting to the point where it feels easy is still Windows and still takes a long time. We have 20 watt, 15 watt, and 6 watt options in here. This is the Z2A, RDNA 2, Van Gogh, I believe it is, architecture. So that's kind of like the Steam Deck architecture. It is much older tech that's in here, and it is meant to be a more budget machine. Now, inside of Armory Crate and Performance, so we did default here on my machine at 6 gigabytes of VRAM on this 16 gigabyte system, which is fine. I don't like to use auto, and I would pretty much recommend 4, 5, or 6, depending on your games for that here. And you're really not going to need more than that allocated for the kind of games you're going to be able to play on here and at the resolutions. And you also don't want to take too much system memory away, system RAM away. But yeah, ultimately for me, being someone who likes the look of a lot of different white tech, I really think this looks sleek and I like it. I kind of wish there was an AI Z2 Extreme version of the white, but all in all, that's fine. I think it looks pretty sleek. Of course, it's not near as powerful as the $1,000 AI Z2 Extreme in the Xbox Ally X version, so it's just going to depend on what you're going to want to play here. I'm only 24 hours in, and I have a lot of testing to do and reviewing to do. This isn't a full review video that'll be coming up, so there's a lot to get into. When it comes to game performance, there's going to be a ton to get into as well. There's easy to run titles I've been jumping into, like Cosmic Invasion here, and being able to run that at its solid 60 FPS at around 10 or 11 watts, so no trouble there for games like that, and that's at 1080p. So even though this machine is built as a 720p gaming machine, especially for a lot of harder stuff, there's going to be plenty of games that you can still pull off at 1080. Jumping into Final Fantasy Remake really quick, and again, I have to get into all these a lot more, but at the 20 watts, 720p in low settings, I was able to pull off 40 to 60 FPS pretty well here. This game forces DRS, or dynamic resolution scaling, so there's a lot going on there as well. And something like Sonic I want to jump into, because I can usually push 120 FPS with this game pretty easily, and I was getting close here at the 1080p, but I would have to probably lower the resolution to 720 if I really want to go ahead and push and cap to the 120 FPS. But yeah, obviously easier to run games, or older games are going to be able to shine on this system a lot more, versus newer games are going to be very hard to run, or that you might struggle to run, and they're going to have to run at pretty low resolutions and settings. But that's kind of what you expect with an entry-level, more budget type device like this. Jumping into Cyberpunk, I'm going to spend a lot more time on this game later in the actual review and in some game testing and comparisons, but this is 1080p medium, and I didn't expect it to be the most playable of settings. I would want to go 720p with some upscaling, maybe balanced on FSR3, and lower the settings. I could probably get this up there a bit. If I switch over to like low 1080p here, I can get a little bit more out of it. Kind of what I expected here, but again, I can make some more adjustments to get more out of this, and this is kind of what I was expecting from something like a Z2A. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a pretty capable machine for its price and for what it's offering. Certainly not something that's going to appeal to everyone or enthusiast or anything like that, but I think for someone just looking for a handheld that might be really good at remote play and cloud gaming and some good native gameplay here that looks pretty decent and is very comfortable and all of that, and especially maybe affordable in today's economy at $4.99 to $5.99, this could be pretty appealing. But again, this isn't the full review. I have a lot more to get into with this. I just want to do a first impressions and unboxing and take a look at this. I'm excited to finally have hands-on and be able to get a closer look and compare it to the other handhelds and see if I think it's more worth it as we get into it. But anyways, guys, thanks a lot for coming and check out the video as always. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.